This is actually a fairly traditional sulphur soft hackle, but rather than using the standard primrose parasol silk for the body, I'm going to use wire for the abdomen and pheasant-tail fibers for the thorax. For the hook, I'm using a number 60 size 14 Dai-Riki nymph hook, and for thread, UTC 70 Denier in brown. Having a rotary vise really helps with this pattern, but it's certainly not essential. Start your thread on the hook shank, leaving a small gap behind the eye. Wind all the way back to the bend of the hook and then forward to the starting point. Snip 4 to 5 fibers of pheasant tail from the stem. Measure them so you end up with a tail about 1 hook shank long. Now, bind the fibers to the hook with wraps all the way back down to the bend, trying to keep the fibers on top of the hook shank as you go. Then, wind your thread back to the starting point. For the abdomen of this fly, I'm going to use UTC Ultra Wire. This is their brassie size in fluorescent orange, although it really looks like pale yellow to me. Whatever the case, the colors work very well when the sulphurs are around. Secure the wire to the far side of the hook, all the way back to the bend. This is fairly important, as you'll see in a minute. Now, with your thread, build a nicely tapered underbody. When you're done, lift the pheasant-tail fibers and take a couple of wraps immediately in front of them to prop them up. If you're using a rotary vise, place your bobbin in the bobbin cradle and make sure your vise is able to turn freely. Rotate the vise or wrap the wire so it crosses the underside of the hook shank first before going over the top. Doing it this way keeps the wire from jostling the tail fibers. Keep on making tight, adjacent wraps of wire going up the hook shank. This is where having a rotary vise really comes in handy. Stop when you're about halfway to the pheasant tail fibers. Now, for this next step, you need only the smallest amount of Zap-A-Gap. I like to put just a single drop on a sticky pad and then use a bodkin to place the glue to the wraps immediately behind the pheasant tail. The glue eliminates the need to bind the end of the wire down with thread wraps. Continue to take nice tight wraps of wire over the glue all the way to just behind the pheasant tail fibers. Snip the wire off with wire nips or old tying scissors. Now, get a hold of the pheasant tail fibers. I like using hackle pliers to do this, and give them a little twist. Take a couple of turns to cover the end of the wire and build a thorax. Then use your tying thread to secure the fibers to the shank. Although different types of feathers can certainly be used on soft hackles, I really prefer Hungarian partridge. It's traditional, has all the attributes I'm looking for, and is a pleasure to work with once you get used to it. A top quality full skin is going to set you back a bit, but I believe it's absolutely worth the investment. Pluck a feather from the very lower reaches of the skin, around the head or even from the head itself. Pull back and remove the longer, fluffier fibers from the stem. You're going to want to do this carefully as the feathers are rather delicate. Now, reorient the feather and grab just the very tip with the thumb and index finger of your right hand. Then pull the lower fibers back with your left. Doing this will expose the very tip of the feather. Snip the tip off, but leave a small triangle so your tying thread has something to get a hold of. Now here's a little trick. Spin your bobbin counterclockwise. What this does is adds extra twist to the thread. Because it was done in a counterclockwise direction, the thread is going to want to jump slightly rearward as you go to tie in the feather. Otherwise, the loop may jump forward, causing you to miss that little triangle on the stem. Grab the stem with your hackle pliers and carefully raise it to vertical. Then work the fibers rearward. Once the fibers are pointed back, gently wrap the stem around the hook shank. Secure the stem to the hook shank with 2 or maybe 3 wraps. The idea is to keep the head small. Now, carefully snip the stem off as close to the wraps as possible. Use a couple of wraps to cover the stem butt. And then whip finish and snip or cut your thread free. A shot of head cement and the fly is done. These flies are so versatile they can be fished in about any way imaginable. I always try to have a bunch of these in different colors. For size, a 14 is a really good place to start.